Hey team, good evening. Um, Giving this a little test run to be able to have a video chat about what the lesson is going to be this week as you prepare. Thank you so much for being prepared on Sunday. You've gotten the notes. I want to remind you, you don't have to do all of the questions that are listed there. I give you more information than what you can really use, but I do want to highlight some things. First is the icebreaker. Icebreaker is real important to be able to set the tone. And so I want to run through these icebreaker questions and just kind of tell you how they fit in with all of the message. We're talking about John 15, I'm the true vine. And the first question talks about what kind of plant best describes you. I know people are not comfortable with that all the time. That's kind of a corny kind of way to look at it. So you can skip that one if you want to, but I think it will open up some questions there. The second one talks about when you've been at elementary school, were you chosen first? Were you chosen last? Were you the last person standing? That really ties in with verse 16 of chapter 15, where God has chosen us. He's not just left it random. He specifically has chosen us. So this sets their mind to thinking about being chosen by God. The next question about, as a parent, how can your children demonstrate love for you? Well, the answer to that is being obedient to whatever is said. That's going to tie in later with the message and with the Bible study in verse 10, where it says, people who follow God's commandments abide in his love. We all know as parents and even as children, the way that you show love to your parents is by being obedient. Well, it's the same relationship with God. The next one is, what kind of emotions do you feel whenever you get disconnected on your phone or the TV or the internet, something like that? We get frustrated, right? Well, John 15:5 says, if we don't abide in Christ, we are separated from him. We can't do anything with him unless he's abiding through us. And so this disconnection, and we're going to tie that in with an illustration later on in the Bible study. The last one, who's your best friend growing up? Very safe. Talk about your best friend. Describe your relationship with him or her. And that ties in with verse 14, where Jesus says, you're my friends. No longer do I call you slaves. You're my friends. And so that's going to tie in later. So these icebreaker questions set the stage for later on. So really use those icebreaker questions, do the introduction, be able to share what the main point is, and then move on to the questions and make sure that it's a discussion-based questions. Some of those questions I wanted to bring up, I thought it was very interesting in researching here that the word for prune in verse 2 is also to cleanse. So I put some information in there about tying those two together. Usually we think of pruning as being a very harsh thing, but it actually is cleansing us. Also, there's a kind of controversial maybe question here about, can a person truly follow Jesus and not bear fruit? I want people to think about that, because if you're truly a disciple of Christ, you're going to bear fruit. You're going to bear fruit. Then there's some quotes and statements by John Newton, and then one in the middle, and then Billy Graham. You don't have to use all of those, but you can use one of those to be able to start sparking some interest in thinking about that. Now, the illustration on the bottom of that page talks about having a branch that's been cut off from a tree or cut off from a bush. It looks green and healthy, but eventually it's going to be dead. And so the idea of staying and abiding in Christ, that's going to produce the fruit. So you might have a dead one there to say, hey, look at these two things together. And then lastly, make sure once you get down to the end and talk about the action points, is just to let them talk about what has God revealed to you today from this passage. And just let people talk. I know one of the most difficult things in leading a group is the silence, the pause, the quietness. That doesn't mean people haven't heard you. It means they're thinking. So allow that to happen. So work through and highlight some of these questions. Be creative in how you even read the passage. You may not have to read it all the way through. Just read it in portions. But to be able to let the group discuss, that's what's going to be the most important thing in the small groups. So you're the facilitator. So I hope this video has been helpful. I'm going to refine it and do more things as we get ready to move into the next sermon series. But know that I'm praying for you. I'm very encouraged what God's doing in Clear Lake Baptist Church, and we're just so glad to be a part of it.